Hello Blazers, NFKRZ, how you guys doing today? Welcome to a brand new video, and yes guys, I'm actually filming a commentary video today for once. This is crazy. Today we're gonna be talking about an issue that worries all of the youth of Russia and worries me in particular. I'm gonna tell you why and explain why in this video. But today we're gonna be talking about the Russian compulsory military service and why it's terrible.
Come on Barbie, let's go party!
Yeah!
Come on Barbie, let's go party!
Alright guys, let me explain. Some people apparently have never heard of this, but in Russia, military service is compulsory. So every single male that is of 18 years of age owes it to the Russian government to serve in the military, in the Russian army, for one entire year of his life. And it's not like you can just say no, or I don't want to, because, well, if you say no, you get jailed. Every single male Russian citizen from the age of 18 to 27 is eligible to be taken and enrolled into the army against his will. Because it's still the Soviet Union here, guys. Actually, I was tweeting recently about the Russian military service on Twitter, and I got a lot of replies of people saying like, yeah dude, go to the military, you're gonna make a lot of money and become strong. Which, you know, made me understand that basically every single foreigner doesn't know absolutely anything about what real Russian military service is actually like, and how it's abysmal. Now, before we get into all of the negatives of the Russian military service, let's talk about a few positives, because there's not much. First of all, it creates a good number for the Russian government, because you know how Russian military is one of the biggest in the world? Well, the reason for that is that because every single male from the age of 18-27 is taken into the army at some point, unless he evades it. Russian military does have a lot of manpower thanks to this. However, as opposed to other countries, maybe, like America or whatever, where you have actual troops that are actually trained and that are actual soldiers, you know, because not everybody would go into the military. So on one hand, you have a slightly smaller army in size with more trained actual soldiers, and on the other hand, you have the Russian army where there's a lot of soldiers that basically don't know anything. I mean, come on. Russian boomers, Russian vatniks always love to use this argument like, oh, if you're not gonna serve in the army, how are you gonna defend your country when a war comes? You can't even shoot a gun or anything. Okay, but most people that I've talked to who actually served in the army said they shot guns like 2 times in the entire year of the service. Not even the soldiers in the army know how to shoot guns or fight. All they know how to do is build houses for corrupt politicians and clean toilets. That's all there is to it. That's all you do in the Russian army. The second benefit would be the insane salary you get being the Russian army man. Yeah guys, in the Russian army, if you're just a regular soldier that's been conscripted, you make a lot of bank. For example, my friend recently, who spent a year in the army, I asked him how much he made in a month in the army, and he said that he made 700 rubles per month. Hell yeah. And the third advantage is not really an advantage, but you know, if you're fat, you can go to the army and lose about 40 kilograms in 1 year, because the food at the army is terrible and you won't eat it. So you're gonna basically just become underweight. Because this is literally every single army story I hear from a guy that just returned from the Russian army service. Every single one of them loses like 40 kilograms of their weight, and also every single one of them get pneumonia. Because the Russian military is a health hazard. The generals and the people that rule in the army, they don't care about health regulations at all. Pretty much every single person I've talked to who's been in the army gets pneumonia and just spends like 4 months of the army period just laying in hospital. You know, it's a great time. Russian army is epic, you guys. Alright, now that we're done with that, let's talk about something more serious. Why the Russian army is actually abysmal. Well, first of all, the Russian army is pretty much a prison. And by that I mean is that not that you have no freedom to walk around, but technically you don't. You do have these little vacation periods where you could maybe go into town, or you could actually go back home to visit your family or whatever. But I think it's only like 2 times per year for a week or something like that, and that's it. But I'm not talking about that. The reason why I'm comparing the Russian army to prison is because the Russian army has a hierarchy of soldiers that's just arrived to the army, that just enrolled, and of these soldiers that are about to finish their service. In Russian, it's called dedovshchina. The idea is that the young soldiers that just enrolled into the army, they are basically used as cheap slave labor. They're used by the older soldiers to do their dirty work for them, and also they get beaten up hell of a lot. So essentially, a young soldier arrives. For the first half of his service, he gets beat up constantly, he gets humiliated constantly, you know, he gets sent out to clean toilets, to throw out the poop sock. I don't know, just the most dirty work possible. He's usually constantly berated, a lot of the times assaulted, and if he tries to report that to any of the generals in the army, they just close their eyes to it, because if that actually gets out, then that's a big problem for the commander of the military base. So the commanders in the Russian army just ignore it, and they pretend that it's completely normal that soldiers beat each other up. There's actually been a ton of stories where young soldiers that just enrolled killed themselves, took their own life, because they just couldn't take all the humiliation and all the physical assaults. And also there's been a ton of stories when people got beat up so badly in the Russian army that they became basically either paralyzed or survived severe PTSD, and that's not even, like, it's not even war. It's literally only just because there's this hierarchy system, and because very often the people that would actually get into the Russian army, these are the people that are not very educated, these are the people that really have nothing going on for them in their life. And I'm not saying that everybody's like that, because a bunch of really good guys end up in the army just because they couldn't evade it, and they very often they get broken down, they get humiliated, they get assaulted by these dumbass hunks, and ever so often the person like that just cracks in this hostile environment. But what usually happens is that a person that got berated and humiliated and punched for the first half of his service, he then basically graduates to the second state, so that he becomes like the oldest soldier, and now he is in place of the person that's beaten up, berating and humiliating young soldiers that just enrolled. And it's an endless cycle, and just goes on like that for the past 50 years. Let's get to the next point, and that is corruption. I already mentioned how basically soldiers are just used as slave labor by corrupt army officials, generals, and so on. There's been a lot of situations where certain generals got exposed because they basically just made soldiers in their regiment build their house for them, or build their summer dacha for them. Okay, yeah, awesome. You know, the Russian army, like they say, is gonna make you a real man. You're gonna spend an entire year building some boomer's house for him for free. Basically used as a slave. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. That's what makes a man, dog. Служу России. So yeah, that's one side of the corruption in the Russian army. But on the other side, I just feel like the entire institute of compulsory military conscription in Russia is just made for corruption to thrive and prosper. Because in Russia, a lot of people actually just buy their way out of the military directly to the officials in the army. It usually costs around $3,000, and you just go in, you pay the money, and there you go. Now you don't have to serve in the army, and it creates some great money for the army official to just put in his pocket real quick and keep. So yeah, that's, I think, the sole reason that this whole institute exists at this point. Because honestly, guys, once again, like I said, this entire army service is just pointless. It doesn't create actual trained great soldiers that would defend Russia. It's just a bunch of young guys that don't know what the hell they're doing there, and there is no point to this. And like, the thing is that in Russia, we already have a contract kind of army, just like you have in the US. So in Russia, actually, if you want to have a military career, if you want to actually serve for money, and actually you can get pretty good money with it, you can apply for it. You need to have very good physical build and form for it. The selection process is actually pretty picky, so not everybody can get into the contract army. However, the regular army that the kids are getting thrown into right after they finish high school, basically, they just take in anyone. And that's the thing with Russian military as well, is that there's a lot of diseases that technically make you not eligible to fit and to serve in the Russian army. However, the thing is that the Russian army has a certain quota that it needs to fill up, so they just take in anybody. If you haven't contacted a special lawyer firm to help you in advance, if you haven't contacted your doctors, then you can basically go in, you can be sick, you can be unfit to serve in the army, but they're gonna just close their eyes to it and say, yeah, you're perfectly fit, welcome to the army, my friend, you're in the army now. Oh. And it's not even funny, because a lot of the times people with like terrible heart conditions that like running would kill them, sometimes these people end up in the army just because the Russian government has a quota on how much of these enrollments they need to create. You guys might say, no, fuckers, you're just a libtard, you know, you don't like Russia, you don't want to serve your countries, so this is why you say all of this is why I don't like the military service. I'm gonna stop you right there, because actually currently in the current Russian generation of males that are similar to my age, regardless of their political views, pretty much every single person of my generation, they pretty much single-handedly agree that the Russian army is useless and is a terrible waste of your time and your personal freedom. There's really nothing that this country has done for me, so I don't have to do shit for this country. Now here's a bit of a more personal side of this video, because I wanted to discuss how the Russian army is actually destroying my plans right now. You see, guys, right now I'm on my final year of studies in my Russian university, so I'm gonna graduate next next summer, basically. And so for a while now, I had this idea, I had this kind of a dream that I would apply for some sort of scholarship in a European country, move there and study there for my master's degree for about 2 years. So I just wanted to have this little opportunity to maybe live in Europe for a bit, see what it's like, and I don't know. So I actually wanted to apply this year right now so that I actually could just, you know, go and start my master's degree in Europe, basically right after I graduate from my current university. Basically so that I just don't waste 1 year and just do nothing for a whole year. But the thing is that, guys, the Russian compulsory military service is ruining all of it for me. Basically, I think that I'm probably not gonna be able to actually start studying as soon as I graduate, and I will have to take a year off because of my military service. Not because I'm gonna serve, definitely not, but because it's basically gonna take an entire year for the whole process of me kind of evading the Russian army. Because the way that it happens is that there's a lot of lawyer firms currently in Russia which you can basically pay a little money to, and what they do is that they provide you legal help. They also assign you a personal doctor who tells you basically what to do, and so essentially they find some sort of disease that you have that essentially could just make you not eligible to serve in the Russian army. And if there's such a case when the Russian army tries to take hold of you and try to force you into serving, they basically just go to courts and basically, you know, bust your way out of there. So yeah, I essentially applied to one of these companies recently. I'm gonna be in the talks with them now for an entire year, I guess, because it takes like a year or a little bit more than a year for this whole process to basically evade being conscripted to the Russian army and to get a special document that says that you're not eligible to serve and you're basically free now, you're a free citizen. So yeah, it seems like I first have to do that before I actually try applying to any scholarship in any European university. Because you see, the way it works is that I can actually go to European university and study, and that would be fine. I could just go to the army officials and be like, yo, I'm now studying in this foreign university, so don't touch me for 2 years. But after I'm gonna come back to Russia, which I'm probably going to anyway, they basically will bust my ass immediately and send me straight to the army, which I don't want to do, especially at 24. Come on. And also, like, it's not 100% guaranteed that I'm actually gonna win a scholarship to go to Europe, right? So if I'm not gonna do this stuff now, with preparing to not get grabbed into the army as soon as I graduate my current university, which also could happen, you know, I might not win the scholarship, and that basically would mean that I have to spend a whole year just doing nothing, which would basically be the perfect time for the army to grab my ass and make me serve. So yeah, basically that's how the Russian army is also destroying my plans. I would really love to actually apply and be in Europe next year studying, chilling somewhere in Sweden or Germany or something like that, but instead I'm gonna have to sit on my ass in Chelyabinsk, patiently waiting for the army to fuck off. And it really sucks. It really sucks because it honestly feels like you're in debt or something constantly, because, you know, technically I'm a free human being, okay? I can do whatever I want. I can not work if I want to. I cannot study if I want to. But if just for a second I don't do anything, the army just grabs my ass and sends me to serve. It basically sends me to prison for 1 year. Why, as a free person, do I have to constantly feel like I'm being tracked down by the Russian army and like I constantly can be basically arrested? Being sent to the Russian army kind of feels like being arrested. In Russia, essentially, as a male citizen, before you serve or before you're considered eligible to serve, you kind of feel like a fugitive on the run from the cops constantly. Why does a person have to feel like that when they haven't done anything? Why do I have to do this, Russia? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, guys, that was pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. I hope you guys got a little bit more of an insight why the Russian military service is absolute poo-poo. And hopefully you guys, you know, understand my point of view. And this is the point of view of majority of Russians on this. Every single one of my friends that have been to the army said that it's a terrible waste of time and there's nothing to do there. Even my dad, who served in the Soviet army in the 1980s, said that it was a terrible waste of his time and a terrible time in his life. There was nothing cool about it. There was nothing fun about it. There is nothing beneficial about it. They essentially just take away your freedom and your human rights for an entire year while you slave off for the governments. Love it. Absolutely love it. So yeah, guys, I guess I'm going to be updating you guys on this channel on my journey on how I'm trying to evade the Russian army conscription, and hopefully you guys smash the like on this video if you guys did enjoy it and if you guys want more videos. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.